You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's your most authoritative news analysis show. And the police say that 7 persons, as you already know, have been remanded. In fact, they were charged provisionally for murder. Doc, when you say they've been charged for murder, it means the ultimate that is being sought by the state will be what? What's punishment?
Well, for death,
yes.
Probably. Unless any of the accused persons are able to get any extenuating factors to reduce the charge of murder to manslaughter.
To manslaughter. That means they'll go in for life instead of to death?
Well, manslaughter, it ranges. You can even just get 3 years. I've seen persons convicted for manslaughter who have been sentenced to 5 years.
Okay.
If you remember the case of Republic versus the gentleman who allegedly killed the famous goalkeeper, Robert Mensah. Melfa.
Right.
He was given, I think, 3 or 5 years.
Okay, I'm asking that because I would like you guys to say something about or educate us also about what the public is calling for. That they are sure that they will be found guilty of murder and that they will be sentenced to death. And if they are sentenced to death, the president, for once, should execute the warrant so that they will be executed, so to speak, or death by hanging or whatever. And the suggestion is that that will be one of the best ways to deter and to stop mob injustice. So there are 7 of them right now standing trial, and the police say there are others that were also arrested, and these were arrested from other places across the country, and there are 9 of them. We understand they are still pursuing others, and they seem to be sure that they will get them in the course of this weekend. So let's take a listen to these few clips, and we'll return to answer the couple of questions I have raised.
It was devastating. I'm still in shock. Up to now, I cannot stay alone. Yes. Very, very devastating. Okay. In respect of myself, I've never expected any bad news. Not even when the wife was panicking the whole day that she hasn't heard from the husband. I said, no. It cannot be any problem. Until, so one day, when I got a message on phone, I dropped to the ground suddenly. My knees gave way and I dropped. But the message to me was that the news is flashing on the social media and we don't want the woman to see it. So please dash down and come and manage the woman. So that dawned on me and I said, Kai, there's a more serious thing to do for me, more serious task. I have to gather myself, which I did quickly, set off from my residence in Afienya and got to Arakan Messier and rushed to go and sit with the woman. She was all over me, wanting to know what has happened to the husband. I said, no, I have heard about him and that he's in a critical condition, but he'll be all right. And she went to her knees and started praying. Oh, my God. Prayed.
Right before you?
Yes, she prayed, and I prayed with her. And when he arrived, I couldn't look at him because the picture is always in front of me, and the picture I see is that he's suffering and struggling. So as soon as the helicopter landed with the body, I saw him struggling, moving in front of me. I saw him complete as a body, moving and struggling in front of me, and I was also crying. So I couldn't see the body.
Currently, the body is deposited at 37 military morgue, waiting autopsy. Yesterday, His Excellency the Vice President was here with his delegation. He promised us that they will do all they could. They will go down the bottom of this case and make sure that those who commit this heinous crime are brought to justice. Again, the family, we have our own concerns, which is the way the things are circulating in the social media is not good. We are all in this country. Barely a week ago, something happened in Britain. Up till now, not a single soul picture that you will see on the what? YouTube or something. But our little son, visuals are all over, even making the family to be crying day in, day out. Again, we made him to know that the comments made by the DCE, I told him categorically that that man don't deserve to be called honorable, which he, the Vice President, promised that he would do all he could and make sure that our concerns are rectified. Inshallah, the deceased mother is not in town. God willing, tomorrow she will arrive from Britain. And the following day, God willing, we'll have a family meeting at Gould House. And the meeting is only going to depend on how the funeral preparation is going to be. Despite now that we don't have much power, but as a family, we have a say. We'll prepare ours, then give it to the military hierarchy for onwards what? Preparation towards a befitting burial. So far, Your Excellency, that's the brief history or brief story I will tell you about what has happened. Thank you, Your Excellency.
The operations that we go, that's forestry duties and those things that we have been doing, assisting them. So I would suggest we leave the work for the police to also carry on so that we come back to our barracks.
Okay, please.
You who kill by the sword, must the same thing die by the sword, sir. The same thing.
That I'll be lynched by the very people that I protect. If I should die on the battlefield, I die like a brave soldier, but not to be lynched. So my question is, what happened to Captain Adams, the wife, the very children, very young children? Does the army have any educational endowment fund for the children? And if they have, to which level? When soldiers fall, we hear a lot of promises, we hear a lot of assurances, including my brother. I'm saying this because I've experienced it.
Right, so we started by listening to and watching his dad speak about how he got the news and how he had to break the news to the captain's wife. And then we had a family member, briefing the vice president who was there on behalf of the president. The former president was there. The first lady has been there. We have seen footages or pictures of other very important people in the country visit and commiserate with the family, particularly the very young wife and the kids. Right, so
Yeah, you're right.
I've got a couple of messages. Let me try and read them, and then we'll get to some other aspects of it. The father intends to set up a foundation that will seek to give education to the public, so we will all avoid mob injustice. We'll deal with the questions of how we seem to have mob injustice, prejudicial, ingrained reaction culture to almost every issue that comes up in this country. Now, take Brighton, is it? In the UK, says that I sincerely hope that the Akufo-Addo government will leverage the outrage that has erupted since the brutal murder of Capt.Mahama to intensify the fight to end the galamsey scourge once and for all. Let it forever be remembered that it was his death that marked the beginning of the end of the galamsey menace plaguing Ghana. There cannot be a more fitting memorial to the falling officer. Prince Osei Bonsu in Milton Keynes says that let's not politicize the matter. Yes, President Mahama has said so. Bonti Benjamin in Achimabwakwa says, aside making sure that natural justice is served in the case of the murder of Capt.Mahama, we should employ a modern mechanism to educate our societies on human rights and the consequences of human rights abuse. Ata Imoro in Wellense says, shame on those trying so hard to politicize the unfortunate killing. Okay, I think you should cut out the politics because we have not brought it here for discussion. I don't see the point about it. So we are not interested. Don't bring issues that we are not looking at. Spike in Ohio says that the truth is Ghana is now a banana republic.
Oh, no. That's too bad.
The Ghana police can no longer be trusted. That is why what happened. I wish all the 16 arrested should be facing a firing squad. McDonald Bruce in Accra says, I support the suggestion that the trial should be telecast live. Max, may your gentle soul rest in peace. And then there is a Musa.
Is he? Yeah. May I come in?
Yeah.
Well, on
You
the
can
issue you referred to earlier about punishment.
Right.
I think that some people are of the view that only those who actually took part in the killing or maybe throwing of stones and stick that will be tried. But the people of Ghana, in their own wisdom, in the law that they have made, when you read section 20 of Act 29, abetment of crime and trial and punishment of abettors. Every person who directly or indirectly instigates, commands, counsels, procures, solicits, or in any manner purposely aids, facilitates, encourages, or promotes, whether by his act or presence or otherwise. And every person who does any act for the purpose of aiding, facilitating, encouraging, promoting the commission of a crime by any other person, whether known or unknown, certain or uncertain, is guilty of abetting that crime and of abetting the other person in respect of that crime. Let me just give a simple example. So people are beating someone to death and you stand by and say, Yile, beat him, take this stone, hit him with it. Or you stand aloof, not doing anything. When it is reasonable for you to at least prevent the commission of your crime, you have abetted the crime. And the punishment here says, every person who abets a crime shall, if the crime is not actually committed, be punishable as follows. Where the crime abetted was punishable by death, the abettor shall be liable to imprisonment for life. In any other case, the abettor shall be punishable in the same manner as if the crime had been actually committed in pursuance of the abetment. Then a related one is also on conspiracy. So you come together.
I didn't actually take note that if you were just standing aloof, you could be an abettor. So it's important you have.
Yeah, even Doctor mentioned
encouraging it. I mean,
okay.
Yeah,
the news that is
inaction.
coming to me is that the JoyNews can confirm and has confirmed with the Central Regional Police Commander that the woman in the footage who is seen ostensibly lighting fire has been arrested.
Wow, thank God. So on the just small issue of the conspiracy, so you come together, you plan to commit an offense, and other people actually put that in effect. You, the person who took part in the planning, you also commit an offense.
Exactly. Right.
So let's not take these things for granted. I only stood by and watched, or I just used my vehicle to carry them.
Do anything.
To carry them to the scene. Okay. You have all facilitated it.
Right.
And you have encouraged it even by your inaction. Of course, within a reasonable expectation. That, like the gentleman who was saying, oh, it's okay, and so on. Perhaps he made an effort. And under the circumstances, he may not have been expected reasonably to have done something more than that.
There's a reference you made that is on all fours with one case, that you carried the people to the place and you didn't participate. Yes. Somebody was convicted of murder for that.
Yes.
Now, Doc, there are people who are literally asking and within the army that, look, the thing, they have been seen doing the thing. So let's go in there and teach them something. What do you say about those who are seeking for such thing?
Well, I think it's a populist claim and request, and the kind of dispensation we are in now, the democratic governance we have embraced, does not allow us to move through that kind of channel.
Right.
We have adopted a trajectory that says that there should be due process. We should allow that due processes to be followed. I mean, when we watch the video, the clip, some are audacious, I mean, and some are quite peeved, as we have all been. But let's allow systems to run. Let's go through the processes so that whoever is supposed to be punished is punished fairly. You know, we don't expect a situation whereby just a single individual from Denchera will be punished when that person was not associated with the crime.
Okay.
Anytime you follow the populist approach, you may overstep your bounds and punish an innocent person. It's better for us to go through the systems and not punish an innocent person so that the ones who actually were involved are punished. You know, some also are clamoring for the president to execute any death penalty that may be imposed by the courts. You know, since 1992, I mean, I think 92, 93 was the last time we carried out execution in this country. We have a place in Insawam for condemned prisoners. You know, the condition you live in, if you survive 10 years
than alive,
and your eyesight will still be there.
And you are going to live there and die there.
Yes.
Well, I mean, for this kind of, I don't think any government will come in the future and grant you a pardon and maybe remit your death sentence into life imprisonment for you to come to the open area, because it's a national outreach.
So you say that is enough,
I think,
rather than go hang them,
yes,
or execute them
the fact that we
somehow.
have in our statute books that death penalty is still in existence,
Right.
Should suffice for now. That's
Okay,
why I
so-
have always been
so-
against that. We should actually abolish the death penalty.
You have been against that crusade?
Yes.
Oh.
We shouldn't abolish it.
When
I
you
mean,
go to law faculty,
we shouldn't abolish
when you
the
start
death
from
penalty.
law faculty, often you start by joining the crusade, Amnesty International, that they should be abolished, death penalty should be taken off the books, and you continue with that crusade until you finish law school. I didn't know that you are.
You know, when you are studying law,
Yeah.
and then you become a human rights activist,
Right.
sometimes the kind of belief system you associate yourself with in the course of time in life, you tend to change.
Right.
And I think, I mean, I've practiced law as a human rights activist when I started with Center for Public Interest Law, chasing the mining giants all over. Over time, you gain a lot of experience and realize that there's a sense in not allowing people to feel that if he kills someone, or if they kill someone, they will not be killed in that kind of fashion.
Okay.
What I see now in Ghana is that they are very vindictive and vicious persons among us. You know, you drive around, and then how some people will walk by the roadside, they will take the entire road, will let the mirror side of your car touch them. If you are not careful, they are jealous of you, they will lynch you.
Yes.
You see, it's that kind of viciousness in the system.
Right.
And meanwhile, what they are doing is wrong. That they are obstructing the free flow of traffic.
Right.
And for that reason, if the car touches them, they then pounce on you and lynch you. It's built over the years.
Just one
People
line.
are jealous of
Just one
those
line.
who may be sitting in comfortable cars, but they don't know where they began from.
Right.
Exactly.
Okay.
Just so that I don't forget, you know, yes, that is really creeping, because now people are bold to even rob judges in their home when they
In Kumasi
know,
just last week.
when they know they are judges. I was surprised. One of them told me that when they, we know you are a high court judge, and so give us everything you have. And they stole from him. Then last week I heard of some people actually went to one of the army barracks and ransacked their private vehicles, and they wouldn't care, because you see, I think when they see people of a certain class, the so-called middle class or the elite, they think people have stolen, quote unquote, something from them.
Okay.
And it's that, so now they are so emboldened that they commit these hate crimes without fear.
Clara, you agree that mob injustice cannot be justified on the claims that are being made by some people that it's because our criminal justice system has too many lapses and loopholes that even, you know, criminals, they say, you know, take advantage of. So what should people be doing? How should institutions be reacting to avoid some of these things? His father says he's going to set up a foundation, which is a good idea.
It is, but that's an individual. With respect to the situation, I think part of the reason why people actually engage in mob injustice is because they know they will get away with it. They are kind of confident that nothing will happen.
Right.
And because they are confident that nothing will happen, they are confident enough to undertake the action. The other thing that also creeps in is sometimes if anything happens at all and arrest is made, they go and see somebody who will go and see somebody who will go and see somebody. Church pastors and politicians will line up and beg.
Right.
So people have come to realize that, oh, I can do whatever I want. Worst case scenario, I need to go and see some people to go and beg for me. And then that resolves the situation. So the way to resolve it, number one, is enforcement of the law. I think that all of this, like Dr. Edusei said, there are whole different provisions in the law for any contribution in this.
He says if you take every single law,
even
there are
harboring a
punishment
criminal.
aspects in them.
Harboring, if somebody comes to live with you, you suspect that there's something wrong, you allow them to live, you would be harboring a criminal.
Right.
So we should just trigger the entire process. And the example we are talking about, this is how to make the example that if you engage in illegality, the long arm of the law will catch up with you. I think people have come to believe that the law doesn't even have arms, let alone long arms.
What do you say about this thing too? You see, some people, and particularly some communities, they complain consistently, is that the police assist criminals in some way. They say criminal because they pronounce you guilty before you face the law.
That's right.
And that they make complaints. The person is arrested, or they arrested the person and handed the person over to the police. That they caught the person doing the act, and yet the next day they see the person walking around, and they say, "Oh, they know China, you see, you take him to the police, they will let him go." So what's the point?
I think sometimes people have unrealistic and wrong expectations. The fact that you think a person has committed a crime doesn't mean that a person has committed a crime.
Okay.
That is the other angle I was talking about the intolerance of difference. You have a certain perception. You are not open to see any other view. That is it. You think the person has committed a crime. You've convicted the person. You think the police should just go ahead and carry out what sentence you deem fit.
Exactly.
So people have to be educated to realize that there is a system. I am not saying that there is no problem with the system. That's not what I am saying. But I am saying that if we are going to secure a just and fair society for all of us, what we are doing now on this sad occasion, the people should continue to do. We must insist that our institutions work.
Right.
And where we think our institutions are not working properly, like in this case, we are asking questions from the report.
Right.
That is what citizens should do.
Right.
If the institutions are performing their duties and we think there's still something wrong, it is our right to question it.
Okay.
So probably we have to come to the realization that democracy is not about elections. Democracy also includes what happens after elections. And what happens after elections is that as citizens, we have to not take for granted our liberty. We have to be able to hold our institutions and leaders accountable and responsible to us. If we go back to just relax and do nothing about it, probably this will go on for a while. I'm sure later on we'll talk about the institutional failure. Yes, the concerns are not illegitimate.
Say it now because we are rounding up on this issue.
So yes, I think that yes, it is not illegitimate. Even as a legal practitioner, you come across situations where you think some people are unfairly dealt with, or you go to court. Take injunctions for example. You go to court. It's very expensive to do a legal process. You go to court, you secure an injunction, you go back, and the people disregard the injunction left, right, and center, and you seem helpless. The frustration is, what should you do? You have tried to comply with the law. At the end of the day, you do feel that the legal system has failed you, especially for people who don't have the means to hire lawyers. The little they have gathered to hire a lawyer.
But when people disrespect an injunction, you cite them for contempt, and the court will put them in jail.
Sometimes they don't have the filing fees to go through the second process. They don't have the filing fees, and then they feel frustrated because then they have to pay again to the lawyer to go through the process. And we know that it's not very easy because of some of the issues of evidence that they would gather and all of that.
Right.
And so the issue of even the begging aspect, where we all take advantage of, and then we all think it's wrong, that's the other aspect of Ghanaians.
Okay.
The fact that you think the law should be enforced against another person, but not against you.
Yeah.
So when you do wrong, you think you should go around and get everybody to beg for you, and then you should be let go. But when your neighbor does wrong, your neighbor should go in. Your neighbor feels the same way.
And on that side, it reminds me of what you said earlier about the question I asked about people thinking they take people to the police and nothing happens. They know that this guy is a criminal. They report to police. The next day he's walking, and they feel all of that. What should they be? How should they understand that process? That if you report somebody to the police and the person is arrested, is it the law that the person should be kept by the police until the case is over?
Probably, I've always said that probably with education,
right,
sensitization. So we all probably have a duty. When this happened, one thing I told all of us is that this is when we all realize that we can no longer continue to concentrate on me, live our little lives and ignore the rest of the population. Education has to go down. When arrests are made, police should make an effort to explain to the complainant that this is how the process works. So that if the complainant sees that the person has been granted bail, the complainant doesn't feel that injustice has happened, because it is not necessarily the case that injustice has happened. So yes, enforcement of the law is number one. Number two is education. And number three, I'm sure we'll come to that. It's not a one problem that has caused this. There are many causes.
Right. I was listening to Ghana Connect yesterday, and somebody gave a story about what happens, for example, in the Kaneshi market now. That a woman used to see people picking your pocket or trying to steal from you, and they would raise an alarm. They have stopped doing it because their justification is that if they raise an alarm, the person will be arrested. The next minute, the person will be back to the area, and they will victimize them. So they just give up. If they see you being robbed, they keep quiet. Koku, what do you say about our general attitude? And Dr. Mensah Otabil says and puts it quite clearly that there's a cultural problem. If it is a question of mob injustice, there's a cultural problem. This goes on anyway. So how do you say, how do we overcome this culture? And I was giving an example in my take. You hear a rumor about your friend, you don't bother to check if it is true, and you start spreading it. That's also an unfair system. That's the way we behave.
Well, I might need some help as to the point about it being culture. I don't know. I need some little enlightenment there. Well, maybe it's a subculture of a sort we have built in our body politic in the society. But I would need some further enlightenment to understand it, whether it is something inherent in terms of our culture. I find it difficult to accept that on the surface, though. Elsewhere, in other advanced jurisdictions, there have been such actions too. So I don't know, it's also culture there. Well, I need some education on that. But if you permit me, I'll look at one or two other issues.
Right.
You know, this thing about death, the capital punishments, death penalty, I suffer a certain personal challenge. It's a moral dilemma that confronts me all the time when this issue comes up. Because truly, if it comes to the issue of high treason, I'm all for the final sanction. Punishable by death. If you overthrow a constitution, you overthrow an elected government, you remove a parliament, those things, I'm unable, to be honest with you, as a matter of conscience, to reconcile myself with it. So it's a non-negotiable proposition for me. You must die.
But if you kill someone, you don't think you should also...
That's why I say I have a moral dilemma. That's exactly, you've read my mind. I have a certain moral dilemma. I know it's inconsistent, but that's the dilemma I have been confronted with all this time.
That's the law of Moses, an eye for an eye.
So
competing principles.
Yes, I admit my inconsistency and the challenge that I face. When it comes to the other crimes, which are below treason, high treason, and murder is serious, to be honest, it's second to high treason as far as I'm concerned. In my uneducated legal definition. So then I become a bit soft, a bit liberal. So that's obviously a contradiction, and that's the point I'm making. No, but two things. what the police are doing, which I think we all know, is the criminal investigations that could lead to criminal prosecution.
Right.
The outcome, we leave it to the courts. All that will be done. We hope they do it in a way that will help justice prevail. But there's something that I think ought to be done as well. See, considering the things that DCE said, which has led to his suspension. Suspension, meaning that there's a possibility of being recalled, even though when I look up, my mind's eye tells me that he might not come back. That's a personal thing. But you see, it raises some issues. This whole anti-galamsey fight is being waged under an interministerial cabinet subcommittee. I'm told it's headed by Professor Frimpong Boateng, with the security-related ministries, lands and natural resources ministries all in there. The issue about the legality or otherwise of the military deployment has come up. All the issues in that concession and elsewhere, but the focus now is on this. I think the president should go one step forward further. He should direct the interministerial committee, which is the lead agency in this matter, to set up a subcommittee to investigate this whole place and the issues at stake. The Minerals Commission, the Forestry Commission, the Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources, the Ghana Armed Forces, the police service, the community, their leaders, all must come before this committee. Look, in there lies the real problem. We should determine there's enough already available to some of the security services. This thing has been going on for years now, indeed, since especially 2016. I didn't mention, I'm not mentioning the name of the company because I realize I'm taking a lead from Samson. You also didn't mention. But it's documented.
Yes.
And a lot has been happening between the Minerals Commission, the Lands and Natural Resources Ministry, the Forestry Commission, the Police Service, the Armed Forces, and it's well documented. There's a problem somewhere. Somebody is not telling the truth. Somebody is peddling half-truths. And all that has come together, combined, to create a situation of lack of integrity and credibility. The president should ask that interministerial committee to set up a small committee to take another look at this matter. And we'll be amazed what will come out. Yes. There are competing interests in this matter. So a situation has been created as if that somebody is doing an illegality, whether it's the military or it's the company or it's the Forestry Commission, and we need to have clarity and conclusion on this matter. Otherwise, it will continue. I've restrained myself from saying things because if I'm asking for an investigative committee to deal with the matter, I don't see why I should preempt things by giving what I know to be the truth. Right. Perhaps I could also be invited as a witness to provide information.
Security information.
Yes, the security people have the information I'm talking about. They have all. Since 2016, somewhere October.
Right.
Amazing.
Letters and exchanges of correspondence, police operations, military police operations in that place, arresting people. They are known and they are across the political divide.
To the president.
Petitions to the president, copies of which I have here, the then and now. Names mentioned. You see, the ostrich, the ostrich factor is not helping anybody. Right. It's about time we hold this case and look into it deeply.
Right.
I'm prepared to be a witness.
Okay, that's nice.
Amazing.
Like you said, up to even petitions to the president, and he reveals one more that I didn't know about. Then and now. I didn't know that petitions have gone to the president now on this issue. Wow. And you've had party leaders.
Yes.
Party leaders
regional executives,
scramble for that portion, that same portion where this thing has happened.
Yeah.
In scramble for it for galamsey.
Innocent person has to be sacrificed for that.
Anyway, okay, so we will pause on this matter at this point. I'll read some of your messages and then we'll move on. This one from a good friend of mine, Shamima Muslim, says that we at the Alliance for Women in Media are calling for an advocacy targeting all women groups across the country to become lead preventers. And if the women are leading it, you can be sure that we'll get a lot of results. Preventers of mob violence in their communities. Because when the last maternal instinct dies, humanity dies. Thank you very much. And Shamima Muslim is founder and director of this very, very good organization.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
I forgot one.
Okay.
Listening to the military, I saw a certain withdrawal syndrome, some isolationism. I don't think that should be encouraged. I appeal to them. I can understand them, the emotions.
You are talking about where they were saying that let's leave it to the police, take us out of it.
Yes, okay. No, it's not.
It's not.
Back
to our
look,
and
after casual, I know this it's difficult. If you are not careful, even the language you use, in our case, you may be misunderstood.
Right.
But look, they go on external operations as well, peacekeeping or peace enforcement. Things do happen sometimes. Okay, I'm not sure they should run away from internal security operations where the police and other security services are found as inadequate to deal with the matter. It's an appeal, but it's based on the professional call of the armed forces.
Yes, I wanted us to end here by my reading these messages, but it will be important for each of you to say, even if it's in a minute or 30 seconds, how you expect, the family to manage all of this. And it was when I was going through some of those messages sent to me personally that I broke down. There's a doctor who says after she watched this, for 3 days she's not been able to eat and she's going through a trauma that you can't believe. That's a doctor, trained physician going through this. I wonder what other people who do not have that professional benefit to handle such situations will be going through after having seen some of these videos. The family's appeal is that you stop circulating and watching these videos. Why do you want to circulate them? Why do you want to watch them in the first place? Oliver Bamba in Salaga says that the spate of mob injustice and general lawlessness in the country is mind-boggling and petrifying. I therefore urge the security officers to bring all the culprits involved in this heinous crime to book. So in 30 seconds, let me hear you and then we'll go on a break and come back. Yes, let's hear from you first.
Yes, I think on that issue, I think fortunately...
in fact, the whole nation is trying to manage the trauma, so what will you do?
There has been issue that people should... I think there's a software by which people can use to prevent further spread of this. But I think that perhaps some clinical psychologists may be employed to be at the service of this family, especially the wife. Because at this stage, her feelings will invariably affect the children, even though they may not understand it. But I mean, they will grow up, and even with them, with these pictures, they may grow up, see these pictures, or even anytime they drive past that town, or hear that somebody is from that town, it will remind them of what has happened. So even at this stage, I think we should get some clinical psychologists and other allied experts to avail themselves or avail their services to the bereaved family, in particular the wife.
Let's hope that the state is in absolute charge of this and will do it as we hear. Even the former president and others suggest that they would go to their aid. Doc, you heard even the dad, beginning to see things. What ought to be done?
Well, we shouldn't forget the family. Besides the counseling that they will need, we have to provide all the required assistance to them, the children who are upcoming. These days, when you lose your parent in this kind of way, I wonder how you can break the barriers and make it in life. I mean, we started from nowhere with just a single mom. At that time, the system will allow certain persons to progress if you had the mind and the ability to progress. Now it's becoming a challenge. If you go to some schools, there's no way you can go to another school at a second cycle and move to the tertiary level. So we have to offer assistance to them. The kind of compensation that may come from the military itself to the family will not be enough to sustain the children. Let's go all efforts, support the family in whatever way we want to support them.
I see.
But the message to the public out there is that don't offer any justification whatsoever to it that institutions are not working. For that reason, you can take the law into your own hands. I always take solace in John Russell's position that if you are offering justifications, it should be a justification that is appealing to the public or any other person on the other side. That is a viable justification, and that's what you should believe in.
Okay. Yes, and like I said, the entire nation is going on. What can we also do to support the family?
Again, as everybody has said, like I said, even for me, I'm still traumatized. There are certain images, no matter how hard I try, I can't get out of my mind. And I didn't even know him. So you can now think of how it would be like for the family. So medical support and psychological support for the family must be key. But in addition to that, this is probably time for us to look at whether or not what kind of facilities and funds are there for dependents of soldiers who lose their lives in the line of duty. So that, of course, it is very difficult out there. How are his kids, what kind of facility is going to be available to them, and then how long will they be able to access that facility? Okay. So that is one thing that we should be able to look at. Okay. Of course, as for the circulation of the pictures, I think that we should respect the decision of the family. I read the family's message to the effect that this was some of the pictures were the pictures of their son at his lowest moment. Of course, nobody can totally, their pain is understandable. What I would, however, want to say is that there was no point in any of these pictures where their son was at his lowest moment. Okay. There was every point where Ghana was at its lowest moment. Okay. The pictures depict their son as a noble. In his death, he was still a noble guy. We saw a patriot, we saw a hero, we saw innocence. But in those pictures, Ghana was the one at its lowest moment. And hopefully Ghana will be able to rise from this lowest moment, so that it will no longer be a thing of saying never again, but this will actually be real action where this would never happen to anybody or any family again.
Wow, do I need to add anything to what Clara said? She said it all. Maybe the little I will add is, last night I was having a discussion with somebody who said there's this appeal for a monument to be erected in his memory. I was thinking that it should be, if it's done, it should be situated at where he fell. The gentleman was against.
You have a lot of support in that, right? Okay, we'll take a break here, and when we return, we'll deal briefly with some, similar unregulated, unlawful behavior of citizens in Somaya, very briefly. And then ask one or two questions about the Nolik Prosecutor put in for JB Dankwa Edu, the Member of Parliament who was also killed, we understand. Just briefly with that, and then we have questions to ask about a government that had 8 days to exit office, buying cars worth millions of dollars for the presidency without consulting those who would be using those cars. We'll be right back.